Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a safe place for leading with your heart. Hey, thanks for being here. You, Me, Empathy is the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective, a collaborative mental health community designed to empower each of us to grow our capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and emotional wayfinding. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. No one is just a silly boy with a feely heart. You can support the show by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts, following us on social media at Yumi Empathy and Feely Human, and joining the Feely Human Collective community at feelyhuman.co. And now your host, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of You, Me, Empathy. My name is Known Wells, and this is episode 185 on defining our own success, self-empathy, and late bloomers with Doree Shafrir. Doree and I, in this episode, talk about being a late bloomer. We talk about the societal and personal constructs of what being a late bloomer is, having empathy for past versions of ourselves, and Doree's new memoir, Thanks for Waiting, the joy and weirdness of being a late bloomer. I read the book. It's wonderful. It is available for pre-order now, and it's out tomorrow. I highly recommend the book. It's wonderful. It's really meaningful. I cried a little bit. It's deeply personal to Doree, and I'm just so proud of her and the book. And, one of the main takeaways of it is having empathy for self, which is something I talk about a lot and in workshops. So highly, highly recommend Thanks for Waiting. You can order it at bookshop.org or go to the show notes for this episode at feelyhuman.co. In this episode, Doree and I also talk about the anxiety and stress of releasing a new book into the world. And we talk about, what do we talk about? We talk about identity. We talk about the gulf between how we perceive ourselves and how others perceive us. We talk about Doree's late bloomer experiences and my own. We talk about the systems that sort of keep us in place and keep us in the shoulds, such as the patriarchy, capitalism, etc. We talk about our mutual love of the mountain goats. We talk about Forever 35, Doree and Kate Spencer's podcast. Wonderful podcast. I highly recommend that podcast. We talk about Harriet the Spy and being, quote, so sensitive, and so much more. Highly recommend this conversation. I really enjoyed it. I know you will too. Please order Doree's book, Thanks for Waiting. You can pre-order it today. And if you're listening to this after today, it's out. Highly recommend it. Before we get to the episode, though, I wanted to just say a couple of things. One is, the main thing is that I am taking the next month off from recording and from releasing new episodes, which is new for me. Haven't done this before. I feel a bit anxious about it, and I also feel very grateful and excited to rest and reset a little bit. I love this show. I will always want to do this show, and I also need a break from time to time, so I'm taking the month of July off, but don't you fret. Starting back in August, new episodes will be resuming with guests like Amanda Crew from Silicon Valley, therapist Anjani Amladi, Caleb Campbell, Jen Winker on Death Doula-ing, Margaret Burton, Nadia Okamoto, and a few others already booked. But so look out for that. I'm just taking some time off. I'm actually in a couple of days. Actually, no, as of today, I'm on a road trip up the coast of California, and I'm very excited. I will be in Portland and Sacramento, and just very excited for that. But what else do I want to say? So I wanted to say that. The other thing is that on July 16th, once I'm back, the next workshop for Feely Human is happening. July 16th at 4 p.m. Pacific time. It's the Illustrating Empathy workshop that I've led before. if you want to think about empathy critically and think about self-empathy, which is very much aligned with Doree's book, I highly recommend this workshop. I lead it. It's about 90 minutes, costs $10 to join, and it's July 16th. So hope to see you there. If you want to sign up for that, go to illustratingempathy.com or go to feelyhuman.co. Click on the workshops tab and click on Illustrating Empathy. And I guess the last thing I will say is please support this show by either supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/feelyhuman, or the easiest way to do it is to leave ratings and reviews in Apple Podcasts. If you haven't done that, please do it. It does truly help out the show. And I love reading your reviews. So that's it. That is the intro. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a Feely human. And I will just say, which is something that Doree had said in this conversation, you're blooming right on time for you. There's no other, whatever you're thinking that is sort of telling you that you're not, or, you know, the fucking patriarchy or capitalism or sexism or whatever is making you feel like you're behind, or you're, I don't know, you're not good enough or something, and, you know, you're starting to compare yourself to others and the success of others. You define what is success for you, and you're blooming right on time. So take that with you. Take that into your heart. It is true. And okay, thanks for listening to this episode. Enjoy my conversation with Doree Shafrir on defining our own success, self-empathy, and late bloomers.
La la la, you, me, empathy, yeah, la la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective. On this show, we explore the struggles, the triumphs, the brights and the darks we face as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You Me Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our mental health, our neuroses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being feely humans. You Me Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I am so immeasurably thankful to have waited for this joyful moment to be here with the Harriet the Spy of our time, fellow late bloomer, co-host of the Forever 35 podcast, and author of the new book, Thanks for Waiting. It's Doree Shafrir. Hello, Doree.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
So excited to have you. I was just telling you off air that I read your book. It's wonderful. It's lovely. It made me tear up a couple times even, and we'll get into that. But like I related very hard to your book.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. That really means a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's do an emotional check-in. We always kick off the show with an emotional check-in. How are you feeling?
You know, we're talking about a little less than 3 weeks before my book comes out.
Yeah.
And it is a rather stressful time, if I'm being perfectly honest. You know, I'm starting to get people like you saying, "Oh, I've read your book and I liked it." And that's always, I think that's like the most stressful, at least for me, that's the most stressful time, because I'm like, okay, my book is starting to be out there just in terms of like media and people are actually reading this very personal and vulnerable thing that I'm putting out into the world. And my previous book was a novel, and I kind of felt like, okay, if people don't like my novel, that's fine. They just didn't like my novel. But when people don't like your memoir, then it sort of feels like they don't like you and your life. So I think
Yeah.
that's kind of sorry, this is a very long-winded answer, but I think that is part of the source of my anxiety right now, is this feeling of like, what are people going to think?
Yes. So relatable, that feeling. There is like it makes sense. Like the fiction is like there's an armor up there, right? Like
Totally.
you're the author, but like you're not the characters, right? You're not the
Yes.
Yeah. So that makes total sense to me, and that's kind of like a running theme in the book itself, which is like being a late bloomer, being someone who does battle. I personally battle myself with like, what are they going to think, right? Like,
Yes.
that's a very human struggle and pain. So I just wanted to relate to you in that way and know that like
Thank
you're
you.
not alone, truly.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But I should also say, like, you put out a book, which is wonderful. Like you made the thing that you wanted to make, and it's successful, and I see it as successful, right? But like,
Thank you.
that's the challenge, right? Is like, how can we as creators, as people who put stuff out in the world, determine our own success? Like what we define
Totally.
that, right?
Totally. Yes. And that's a really hard, for me, that's always been a hard kind of metric, because I feel like I've always been really hard on myself, which I think is another thing that kind of comes out in the book. And so I know that my kind of standards for judging me are probably kind of skewed, and what, the outside world might deem as successful, to me, I'm like, oh, that didn't go well. And I'm trying, like, that has been an ongoing theme throughout my life. And I think I've gotten better with that.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's something that feels so high stakes, like this book, I think that tendency tends to kind of come out again.
Yeah. Do you find that, so for me, like, I find that things can sort of like they can kind of blow out of proportion, anxiety wise, stress wise, when I'm not like doing the digging and investigating them, like to trying to get down into like the specificity of like, okay, why is this happening? Because I feel like when I'm able to do that, there's a little space for like curiosity and a little space for like some gentleness in there, because
Yeah, for sure.
when we can sort of unpack it, like there's like, oh, well, that's a little silly, and maybe we can sort of challenge ourselves a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's true. I mean, even just like talking it through now in the past few minutes has made me kind of realize some things. So thank you.
Well, I mean, it's hard, and I'm just curious, like what has helped you in maybe sort of quelling some of that anxiety. And maybe it's talking to friends, maybe it's like your husband helping, sort of like saying, hey, you did a thing or whatever. Like what are the things that help you and sort of ground you?
Talking things through with my husband does help a lot. I think sometimes I don't even sort of realize how stressed I am, and then it takes him being like, what is going on, for me to be like he's like, is there something specific that is stressing you out right now? And I'll be like, oh yeah, there is actually. Like this happened just a couple days ago. I was in a terrible mood and feeling very anxious and stressed, and he was like, are you just generally stressed about your book, or is there like something specific going on? And I was like, well, like my book publicist wants me to write this, or my, the whole sort of publicity team at my publisher wants me to write this essay. And I'm realizing that like, I don't really agree with the premise. And I just kind of like talked it through, but I hadn't really pinpointed what it was until he like asked me that specific question. So yeah, so that helps. I mean, doing Forever 35, the podcast that I do with Kate Spencer helps also because that gives us, you know, like a forum to talk about stuff.
Yeah.
Friends, yeah. I mean, you know, coming out of the pandemic, I'm realizing as I'm starting to get out into the world a little bit more, I'm kind of realizing how much I missed being with friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think for a long time during the pandemic, I was kind of like, just to get through it, I had to be like, I'm fine. Like you know, I'm fine just being virtual with my friends. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay. And now that I'm starting to get like this taste of like going out to dinner, and I'm like, oh, I really missed this.
Yes. There's a couple of things there. First, like, you know, Matt, your husband being, I mean, we're mirrors for each other, right? Like we sometimes, like, especially the people that know us best, you know, my partner, Jessica, does that for me. Like when I'm feeling, well, often, not often, but like I have depression and sometimes she picks up on it before I do. So like, just a reminder that like we need people like that, you know?
Totally.
And then the other thing is like, I feel you on the sort of like getting out of quarantine and the pandemic and like the feeling of like telling yourself it's going to be fine, because it's in a way like a survival tool, right? Like, because like really the thing that we all experience globally, collectively, individually is like a thing we've never done before. So like I have been giving myself and friends and people I've talked to a lot of like grace and kindness because we've never done the thing, right? And so like however we like experience the thing or get through the thing, whatever we tell ourselves is probably okay, you know?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about this concept of late bloomer, because I it's something that I've always felt, and I'll tell you a little bit about like how I relate to it. So like you talk a lot about in the book about your experiences dating and like all of that, which I found very entertaining, by the way, and hilarious. The piece that like I relate to is like I grew up in an evangelical Christian home.
Oh wow.
Where like sex and those types of things were like off limits, right? Like you don't talk about them. Masturbation was a sin. You're going to hell if you do such a thing, you know? So like there's this deep shame that leads to a lot of this. Well, for me, it led to a lot of like, I don't know how to do relationships. I don't know how to like open my heart up to people, you know, like that kind of thing. And it led to not a lot of like experience with like dating, not a lot of experience with relationships. You know, there was a few, but like my wife, who we've been married for 11 years now, like really has been sort of crucial in that sort of growth for me. And I just wonder, I guess I'm curious, like as to you, like how do you define what late bloomer is for yourself, and like maybe talk a little bit about like where that came from, like, you know, you as a little kiddo, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I do try to get across in the book is that the whole concept of being a late bloomer is kind of both a societal construct and something that we impose on ourselves. So I don't think that there is like an objective, you know, data-driven definition of being a late bloomer. And you can feel like you're a late bloomer in some aspects of your life and not in others. So I don't think that there's like an immutable definition of being a late bloomer. I think for me, I started feeling like a late bloomer in like my mid to late 30s. And it kind of started with a lot of social stuff, like feeling like I was going to all these weddings and I was single, and, you know, I was the oldest. I'm the oldest in my family. I'm the oldest of three. And my sister, who's 7 years younger, got married when I was single, and then my brother got married, and then people were having kids, and I was like, and I felt like I'm still like living in apartments and not, I'd broken up with a boyfriend when I was 33 and hadn't really dated anyone that seriously since. And I was just like, is my life moving forward? Like, and I
Yeah.
just started asking myself those questions. And then, then that also leads to the sort of meta question of like, what does having your life move forward mean?
Yeah.
Certainly there are many people who don't get married and who live in apartments. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
is not a marker of some sort of forward movement. But I think I just started asking myself all those questions. And then with the career stuff, it was interesting because ever since I was in my like mid to late 20s, I just was like, oh, I work in media. I'm a journalist. This is what I do. I'm kind of moving towards this ambiguous goal of like, I don't know, running something. Like it was never really clear, but it just felt like, oh, I'll just keep getting promoted. I'll keep getting, better jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And then at some point, again, kind of in my late 30s, I was like, wait a second, like, is this what I want? Like, is this what I'm want to be doing? And then that led to all kinds of like, again, like meta questions of like, what is ambition? What is it? I always saw myself as an ambitious person, but now I don't want to do this anymore. What does that mean for like my own identity? So anyway, this, again, very long-winded answer to your question, but I think for me, a lot of this was also about coming to terms with the idea that even though for a time I had like defined myself as a late bloomer, I was kind of blooming, if you will, like right on time for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that I hope that is one of the takeaways that people have from the book.
It is. I mean, it certainly was for me, and I think what's like so crucial about exploring this concept of late bloomer is you're right. It's like we decide what is, how we bloom and when we bloom and what is right, and also there's so much, you mentioned cultural, there's so much intersectionality at play in regards to the patriarchy, in regards to, capitalism and business and Hollywood and all these forces at play that like, just want to put us on a timeline or want to put us on, like, want to pit us against each other, want us to compare, right? And it takes a lot of effort and mindfulness and a great deal of, I think, vulnerability to say, fuck that.
Yeah.
I choose what it looks like for me.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, even like to your point, like even the idea of like late bloomer, even that term itself holds a lot of taboo, holds a lot of like holding back, right? It's a limiting thing. Yeah.
Well, and as you say, it comes with a lot of like cultural expectations. Like, what metrics am I evaluating my late bloomerdom on? It's a very American white upper middle class perspective. And that's something that I've also tried to examine and interrogate in the last few years as well.
There's another piece of it that's kind of hard to unravel sometimes, which is the identity piece, right? Like we begin to think like, oh, I am a late bloomer. And this like, right?
Yes. Yeah. And what was funny too is like some of my close friends, when I told them about the book, they were like, you're not a late bloomer. I never saw you as a late bloomer. And that was always really interesting to me too, because again, I think that this gets back to, the gulf between how we perceive ourselves and how others perceive us. And of course, the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? So And then, whenever I would have these conversations, I would kind of explain to them, well, this is why, I saw myself as a late bloomer. And, at this time when you thought I was, just going full speed ahead and really confident doing well, I was actually deeply insecure and, kind of explaining to them like, and that's another thing that I do talk about in the book is like feeling like the person that I presented to the world wasn't necessarily my authentic self. But I was afraid to put my authentic self out there because I didn't think I liked myself enough to put it out there.
How are you with those feelings nowadays?
I think it's a constant kind of evolution, right? Like every time I'm like, oh, I'm so much better. Like I don't have these kind of like body dysmorphia issues anymore. I'm so much more secure in who I am. Then like something will come up where I'm kind of like transported back to those feelings again. So I do think that while I'm much more aware of them and I have come really far, unfortunately, or for like, I guess this just is what it is. These are things that are part of me and they will probably never fully go away. And all I can do is, kind of, again, like be aware of them. But yeah.
Yeah. Awareness is crucial. Yeah. And not fighting the things,
Totally.
not resisting, right? A lot of suffering comes in the resisting of, certain truths that we just can't shed, Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like as a society, we do want to like, I don't know, let's move on from the trauma. I went to therapy. Let's check the box on that thing. But the reality is it's very messy and we're going to be triggered because the world is wild and bonkers and a mystery. And like, we don't know how tomorrow is going to be. Right.
Yeah, 100%. And like sometimes things that seem unrelated to our past traumas trigger us in ways that we're just not expecting.
Yep. Yeah.
So, yeah. I think kind of sitting with the pain and sitting with the trauma and sitting with the hard times that we went through or that we're going through, that is something that I have learned, I think, to do a better job with. I think before I was just so consumed with like minimizing the pain and putting on the brave face. And now I'm like, I'm sad or I'm really mad or, I'm really trying to, I guess, ultimately like live more authentically in that sense.
I love that. I'm so happy to hear that. And I when you say that, I think of your role as a mom, right? Like, and you showing up as a person who has big feelings sometimes and who does struggle sometimes. And like, I don't have kids. We tried for years and it didn't happen. But all of my friends have kids and I talk to them all about how crucial it is to just allow for your kids to see you being human. Yes,
totally. I think you're right. I think having a kid has made me I don't want to speak for everyone, but for me, at least, it made me kind of re-examine the ways I had been taught to minimize my own feelings.
Yeah.
And to feel like, I knew that it upset my mom, especially if I seemed sad or depressed. And so, I didn't want to seem sad or depressed around her. And I don't want my son to feel like he can't show those feelings around me. And so I think it's important, like you said, to also show those feelings to him.
Yeah. Kids are sponges. They
Totally.
pick up so much more than we are willing to accept, I think.
Yeah.
I last year I wrote I don't know if it's going to amount to anything. I've been trying, but I wrote a picture book about this whole
cool.
idea. And the opening sequence is a kid who sort of walks in on his parents having a big fight, right? And he gets upset. And he sort of runs out the room, or he runs out the room after the mother says, you're fine, right? Which is such a minimizing thing. It's such like to a child, that's telling them like, oh, like being upset is not okay. I can't cry, right?
Yeah,
I have I have to shove this stuff down.
Yeah.
I did a lot of that as a kid. As you know, I was a violent father and all that stuff. So I was like, hunker down, like protect yourself, you know? It's taken a lot of work, therapy, medication, etc., to like find my truth and accept the fact that like I am a sensitive person, and that's a beautiful thing and not a burden anymore, right?
Yeah, that's actually something that Kate and I were just talking about on Forever 35. I feel like when I was growing up, if I said something that was too like emotional, or I responded to something in a way that was emotional, the reaction to me was often, "You're so sensitive." Gosh, you're so sensitive. Like, why are you so sensitive? And so I obviously like internalized that. Like, A, oh, I'm really sensitive. And B, being sensitive is bad.
Yep.
And C, I shouldn't show that I'm feeling sensitive. And now, years later, I'm like, well, wait a second. Like, of course I'm sensitive. And being sensitive, I think, has made me more empathetic. And that's why I'm a writer, you know, like all these things that I kind of saw, or I was, you know, taught to see as negatives, I'm now realizing like not just made me who I am, but like are not things that I should be ashamed of.
Nope. Yeah. They're superpowers. Yeah. And it's an interesting juxtaposition here, like you being this sensitive kid and sensitive person and maybe feeling like you had to hide that sensitivity. And on the other hand, you're just devouring books, Harriet the Spy, etc. And I've always felt, you know, being a big reader myself, books are sort of portals of empathy. Like they are empathy machines, right? Just like movies are. Like I know for me, and I'd love to hear about your sort of relationship to Harriet the Spy and reading and stuff. Like for me, it was like escape. It was like, I'm Billy Coleman from Where the Red Fern Grows. I am off on those adventures in the woods, right? Like it was everything to me.
Yeah. I mean, I first read Harriet the Spy when I was 7. And I thought she was so cool and so interesting and so smart. And like, yes, she pissed off her friends, but they all, you know, the other kids in the class were kind of bullies and mean to her. But, you know, she also is very mean about her very close friends. And I think that's one of the sort of lessons of the book.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that was when I first read it. And then I reread it many times over the years. I still have my copy from when I was 7, and it is like falling apart because I just read that book so many times.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I mean, Harriet, yes, she's a spy, quote unquote, but she's a reporter, you know? And that really inspired me, I think, as a kid. And that was what I was like, oh, this is what I want to do.
And the other piece about Harriet, I read Harriet the Spy, is that she's very like bold in who she is. She seems very accepting of who she is.
Yes. And, you know, I'm thinking she eats a tomato sandwich every day.
Yeah.
And at one point her mom is like, Harriet, what, like, don't you want to eat something else? And she's like, no, like, this is what I like.
Yeah.
I like tomato sandwiches. Like, what's your problem? And it, sorry, our gardeners are here, of course, because
It's okay.
why
Because
wouldn't
Southern
they be?
California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that just also I think is such a good example sometimes of like parents sort of projecting onto their kids who they think they should be or who
Mm,
they want them to be, and the kids are just like, no, this is who I am, like just accept me for who I am. I like
yeah.
tomato sandwiches, this is what I want to eat. That seems like a kind of superficial example, but I think it can be extrapolated into many other things.
Yeah. I wonder, are you seeing, in your boy Henry and your little child Henry, like, are you seeing like little sort of, bits of his sort of like, this is Henry personality popping in?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and it's so interesting because it's not really my personality. He's
Mm.
very into like order and where things go and wants everything to be clean and gets like upset when there's dirt on his rug and remembers where like everything in the house belongs.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, like this is who he is. He's like a little obsessive, a little, orderly, but this is this is how he makes sense of the world.
Yeah.
And so that's, that is who he is.
Yeah. This is fascinating. I always like, I mentioned before, most of my friends have kids and to see, yeah, you do see like similarities in like the parents, but like, I just think about my own, like I have 3 siblings, 2 younger brothers and an older sister, and we are so different, like so vastly different. It's just fascinating how that works
it's
out.
so interesting. Yeah. And it's funny too, because my husband and I are both we're not especially orderly people. But I think, my husband's very into collecting and has a sort of like obsessive streak in that regard. And so I kind of see it in Henry in that way.
Interesting. Yeah.
And Henry also is so interested in like how everything works. He wants to, take everything apart. He wants to figure out how everything works. And I see that in my husband also. So that's another thing that is like, it's just interesting to see how these qualities, these traits manifest themselves in a child.
I love that. So to go back to books for a second, I there was something you said in Thanks for Waiting that kind of had me rolling on the floor laughing, which was like, you said something along the lines of like, you couldn't bring yourself to sleep with someone who thought that 15 books in your apartment was a lot.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yes, a woman after my own heart. Because like, I mean, you see behind me, like we are just flush with books. We had a book themed wedding, Doree, like,
oh, wow. That's so cool.
books galore. My wife is a college English professor. She teaches writing and stuff. So like books are
cool.
our jam. And I just love that. 15 books.
Yeah, well, so to kind of explain this, I had broken up with with my long-term boyfriend, but we were just quote unquote broken up for the summer. So I had gotten a sublet and left most of my stuff in the apartment that we shared. But I brought my kind of like, these are the books I would save in the fire books with me. And so there were just like probably about 15 books there. And so, meanwhile, back in my old apartment, I had like, 3 or 4 like towering bookshelves overflowing with books. And so when this guy said, wow, you have so many books, I was kind of like, what?
Yeah, he just has, I don't know, a Maxim magazine in his bathroom or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I love that. Let's talk a little bit about like what the thing that like I think hit my heart the most about reading your book is its message about like self-empathy and having empathy around our past versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
So I've had to do a lot of work in this regard, like even going to EMDR and like
Wow.
inner child work, like all that stuff. And it's been pretty crucial in my own sort of mental health journey. Talk a little bit about like your journey with sort of that, having empathy for self and past versions of yourself, etc.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was something that I really worked through when I was writing my memoir because, you know, I had to kind of relive these past versions of myself many times over.
Yeah. So many
and
edits.
So many edits, and kind of process everything that had happened and retell it, and also like re-examine it. And in the course of doing that, I found myself having just so much empathy for especially like the teenager and the young adult that I was. Whereas I think before, it wasn't that I didn't have empathy. It was more just like, oh, I was so depressed then.
Yeah.
Kind of probably dismissing it, but just like, oh God, like, thank God that's over. Like I was just there's so much self-loathing. Oh, I'm so different now, blah, blah, blah. And, then I was able, with the memoir, I was kind of able to look back on that and be like, wow, like I really like care for that person. It wasn't just like, I can't just like dismiss them as being depressed. Oh, that was depressed me.
Yeah.
That's not me anymore. Well, like, yeah, it is me. It is still me.
Yeah.
And, I'd like to show myself some of the kindness that I didn't show myself at the time. So yeah, that was a really kind of intense experience, I think.
I love that. I love that writing a memoir can be that experience. Like I think that's really profound. I think that work is something I feel like we all need to do, because I don't want to like should on everyone, but like I do think that to your point, like we do, I'm 40. I still have very much a lot of those previous versions of myself within me, right? They're like core tenets, right? They're core parts of me. And then some of those core parts of me, I need to investigate because maybe they're not true anymore. And maybe like the tools I used as a teenager aren't working for me anymore. But it like takes the looking to realize, oh, okay, the armor you wore here, like it served you, it was beautiful, it protected you or whatever, it served you for that time. I'm going to like honor it and then maybe let it go. But like we have to look. We can't just, to your point, like be dismissive or just say like, oh, I'm not that person anymore.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah. But it's hard. It's hard to do that. I've certainly struggled with that. This self-empathy piece, I lead some workshops like for local colleges and stuff, and I recently did one at I think it was Chapman, and the sort of the main feedback, which was very surprising, was I didn't know you could have empathy for yourself, which broke my heart.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
And maybe that's just like a maybe not sort of fully realizing what empathy is and what it can be, right?
Yeah.
But like it makes me so happy that you're talking about it and you've written this book and it's coming out, and like I want people to understand that like empathy for self has to happen. I feel like anything, we have to care for ourselves before we can properly care for others, right? It's the same with empathy.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And, I think another component of that, for me at least, is remembering that I need to have empathy for my present self too.
Yes.
It's not just reevaluating my past myself, it's reminding myself that, you know, I need to give myself some grace now. And
Yeah,
sometimes it's hard to remember to do that in the moment.
it is hard. It is hard. Yeah. But we all deserve it. I think there is a cultural force at play, I think, at times. And you guys talk about this a lot on Forever 35, which is like caring for yourself is selfish, or, like you have to sort of sacrifice yourself for others, this sort of altruistic leaning sort of thinking. And I think it's damaging. It's flawed.
For sure. Yeah. We just read a letter, we just read an email from a listener who told us this whole long story. And then at the end, she said, "Am I just being selfish?"
Mm.
And I was like, yes, you should be selfish. Your whole email was about how you've never put yourself first. And I think especially for women, sometimes it can be really hard to not just put ourselves in that caretaker role and worry about other people's feelings before our own. And so, yes, I kind of think the word selfish is like this dirty word, especially for women, but like, come on,
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right in that there is also this cultural force at play that's like women have to be these beacons of strength. They have to do it all. They have to have careers. They have to be moms. They have to, give birth. Like I talked to, Jessica Zucker, who wrote this book, I Had a Miscarriage. And we talked a lot about like just the ridicule and criticism based around just like natural birth versus non-natural birth, and like
totally.
the ridicule of like, are you glowing in the way that is like accepted by magazines or whatever? Is your pregnancy bump like it doesn't? It's like there's so much. And that's all patriarchy bullshit. And I feel like so many of these systems that we're talking about, just burn it all down. Just burn that shit to the ground.
Yes. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So how has your, like, since becoming a mom and, you went through quite the journey to becoming a mom. Like I mentioned at the top, like the piece in your book about your IVF journey was emotional. Like it was, I teared up. Like it was like really compelling and emotional and hard to read at times. And I guess I just want to ask, like, how have you been navigating this sort of like, I am a mom in the world. I am also a writer. I am multi-hyphenate. Like, how have you been navigating those feelings?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think my tendency is to just constantly be analyzing and questioning. And sometimes I just have to stop doing that, kind of like be in the moment. And I think with Henry, before he was born, I think a lot of my anxiety I channeled a lot of my anxiety into safe sleep and got like very obsessed with the idea of like he needed to be always, in a safe sleep environment. And there was like a whole Facebook group that I got really into. And it wasn't until later that I was like, oh, this was how my anxiety around having a child was manifesting itself.
Yeah.
Did I like really think that my baby was going to die of SIDS? Like, not really. Like of course there was a very small chance that was going to happen, but like deep down, did I really think that was going to happen? No. But I was like so obsessed with it. And so I think, I don't know, I've sort of like lost the thread of your question, but I'm just thinking, like, for me as a mom, kind of balancing that idea of like, okay, is this a thing that I'm really anxious about?
Hmm.
Or is this just like a I don't know.
This is a Facebook group telling me I need to think about
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. And that I think is just a constant thing for me with motherhood
Yeah.
and trying to kind of like find my own way
Mm-hmm.
is a challenge sometimes, you know?
Yeah, and it's not like we have only a few titles or a few pieces of research to look upon. Like there is a wealth of like people telling you what to do and what should be done
Yes.
and how this is the right way and this is the wrong way, and if you do it this way you're a bad mom, and you're there's so much of that
Yes.
to navigate. Yeah.
Yes. There's so much, and it comes from everywhere, and it comes from, the most unexpected places. So trying to kind of like drown out that noise is a constant challenge, I think.
Well, and it absolutely is. And it leads me sort of like to thinking about this other piece of your book, which is kind of like about belonging and ultimately the question of like, where do we fit in the world? Where do we belong? And I think the answer is we belong to us, right? Like that's it. That's what we can control. That's the self sort of awareness and acceptance that we can, that's our little world. And that's what we can do. Anything outside of that's like, it's just not a space that we have any control over. And that's, I think as maybe anxious people, sometimes that's hard to accept because like we want to, like, the controlling is a sort of force for trying to sort of manage the anxiety, but
Totally
doesn't work.
No. And, I think I saw a lot of that during the pandemic where for a while I was getting really upset about, people on my Instagram who were like eating out at restaurants when, before vaccines were here and, just doing things that I wasn't doing because I didn't think they were safe. And then I just had to be like, this is not my problem.
Yeah.
I can't control this. Getting upset about the fact that this woman is eating at a restaurant or going to a hotel is not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And I know that was another kind of example of like, well, I'm feeling really anxious about the pandemic. I feel out of control. There's nothing I can really do. So I'm going to focus on these people who I think are behaving recklessly.
Yep.
And once I kind of realized that, I was like, I need to let this go. Because the only person, like you said, the only person whose behavior I can truly control is my own.
Yep.
So, I'm not going to eat in restaurants right now. I'm not going to go to hotels, but I cannot let the fact that these other people are doing it affect my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, I think, very relatable for folks the past year. I think there's been a lot of anxiety and certainly fear, right? Of like, we basically just like for a time lost all of our anchors, right? We were anchorless, right? We lost our routines, we lost these things, and then we're sort of swimming in an ocean, and we want to latch on to something that like, and maybe it's judgment, maybe it's like sort of lashing out or whatever. I certainly did that, when folks started like hoarding things, right? We're like, what are they doing? Like, can't they be good people? And of course, like I have to step back. It's like, where's that coming from? Like, how do I know what frame of mind they're in? Right. Like, I don't know what's going on, but that just takes work. That just takes time, and we all struggle with it for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, as a reader, as a bibliophile, a book nerd, if you will, obviously you've been working on your book. You're in publicity mode right now. Do you have like a list of a few books that you want to like get to and to read eventually once sort of like the storm calms?
Yes, I do. There is a new book called God Spare the Girls
Mm.
by Kelsey McKinney. It's a novel. And it's about, actually, maybe you'll be interested in this. It's set in North Texas, and it's about two sisters whose father is the head pastor of an evangelical megachurch.
Ah,
And they discover like a secret about him.
interesting.
And kind of like upends everyone's lives in the town.
Nice.
So I'm very excited to read that book. I'm very excited to read. I want to make sure. Yeah, I'm very excited to read The Other Black Girl, which it takes place in the publishing industry. It's about a young editorial assistant who is the only Black employee at a publishing company, and then another Black woman starts working there, and it's from what I understand, it's like it's a thriller, I guess.
Okay.
But it also has a lot of like very trenchant, kind of societal observations.
Yeah. I do wonder if we're going to get more of stuff like that, thinking about like real life things that happen. Like, did you hear about the thing that happened at like Bon Appetit and that, that whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, I wonder if like we're going to get more sort of either fiction or nonfiction about speaking to that kind of thing more explicitly. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am. I mean, I mentioned at the top I'm very lucky because I got to read your book, but I'm lucky just broadly because I get books sent to me a lot, and as a reader, it's I feel very very lucky. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
The book that I am wanting to read that is not sort of associated with the podcast is Ashley Ford's new book, Somebody's Daughter. Yeah, that looks amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited to read that too.
Yeah. So, a couple more things, and maybe you don't have much to say on this, but there was a moment in your book where you mentioned the mountain goats, and I wanted to maybe take a couple of minutes to just fawn over our mutual love of the mountain goats? Question mark.
Sure. Yes, I love the mountain goats.
Good. Oh, I'm so glad to hear. So, favorite album?
Tallahassee.
Excellent. I think that's my number 2. Sunset Tree is probably my favorite.
Okay. All right. Fair.
There's just something like I mentioned like abusive father, violent father before. Like
totally.
there's that whole sort of story to that album that's just so powerful. Yeah, Tallahassee. What have you ever seen them live?
I have seen them live. I saw them live at Bowery Ballroom in New York in probably 2011,
nice.
2012, maybe. Trying to think what album they would have been touring.
So I saw them in 2007 in San Francisco at the Independent. They were touring the Get Lonely album.
Okay.
Which came out that year.
I like been probably I don't know. Oh, All Eternal's Deck, maybe?
That sounds right. That was around that time, I think. What do you like about the Mountain Goats?
Okay, wait, I just Googled it. I think it was the show in March 2011.
Okay. Nice.
What I like about the Mountain Goats, I like that they're very raw. They talk so openly and honestly about trauma and abuse. I like their music. Um, I actually haven't listened to them in quite some time. So now you're making me want to listen to them again.
Yeah. I think, I mean, John Darnielle, they're just so versatile. Like they have they made an album, Goths, like that came out a few years ago that was like, I think they just excluded any sort of percussion just as a sort of an experiment. So they're like, I feel like their range is quite vast, and I just love his lyrical style, and I love his brain. He's written a couple books too.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is not the John Darnielle show. I just needed that tangent because I'm just a huge fan. So the book comes out June 29th.
Yes.
And it's already a smashing success. So we talked a little bit about like what success looks like. Like, are you trying to put stuff on your shoulders in terms of like this many sold, or like how are you trying to navigate like specifically like what success looks like for this book?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I said on Forever 35 that I wanted to make the New York Times bestseller list, which was like, it wasn't facetious, like I do, but I think it was also kind of like this probably won't happen. But then I'm also like, did I say it like that because I'm like just protecting myself? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like afraid to articulate my like actual goal.
It's vulnerable to say, it's vulnerable.
But I think that the symbolism of being on the bestseller list is what is really important to me, because that means that a lot of people are like buying your work and reading it.
Yeah.
And I just, I really want it to resonate with people, and I want it to be a book that, people tell their friends about. And that to me feels like success. So, no, I don't have a specific number of books that I want to sell, but I'm just really hoping that it like sparks conversations and it makes people think about their own lives.
I believe it will. I mean, I'm not blowing smoke. Truly,
Thank you.
I read all the time, and I think, and I'm a white cisgendered man, right? And like this is a book, I think for everyone. I think there is so much sort of universally there that we can latch on to in regards to self-empathy and belonging and feeling caught up in the systems that make us feel less than, or we should be doing that. There's just so much there. I think that's so human that I think so many, especially all you listeners, like go order this book pronto, because it's wonderful. It'll be your summer read.
Much. I hope so.
Yeah.
I really hope so.
Are you doing any like book club things with like groups and things like that?
Not as of yet. We are putting together a kind of like book club kit, with like discussion questions and some accompanying photos and other sort of goodies. So I hope that people who might want to read this for their book clubs will take advantage of that.
That's cool. Yeah. I think it would be a great book club book because
Thank you.
It's hilarious, and it's also, meaningful, and there's a lot there to unpack and talk about. Yeah. I love that. So, let's talk about empathy heroes.
Okay.
So we always like wrap up the show talking about like the people in our lives, could be even characters from stories like a Harriet the Spy, for example, who are empathetic, compassionate, sort of people we look up to. I will go first to give you a second to think about your empathy hero. I am just going to call out. So you've mentioned it a few times, your podcast, Forever 35. Listeners, if you aren't listening to Forever 35, you should. Yes, I'm going to say should. Forever 35 is my empathy hero. I'll just say it because it's, I don't know. there's certainly a lot there that like butt care, for example. Like that's not a thing I do, right?
Right.
And there are certainly like, sort of like sort of female identified specific things that I'm not going to like relate to, but like
Yeah.
the vibe of the show is self-care, it's honoring self, it's joyful, it's hilarious, it makes me feel seen. It's it's a warm bath. It's a beautiful thing. I love it. I'm a huge fan, and it's why you and Kate and the podcast are empathy heroes.
Well, my empathy hero was going to be Kate.
Well, there you go. Please, Kate, talk about Kate. I love Kate.
Kate is amazing. Kate is my empathy hero because Kate is truly one of the most thoughtful people I've ever met. She's so kind. She's so generous. She's just so thoughtful in a way that I feel like I am not, but I've learned so much from her. I think I've become a more thoughtful and generous person since, starting to work with her and being friends with her. And yeah, she just has like seemingly bottomless wells of empathy. So she is my empathy hero.
I love that. And I love that you included in Thanks for Waiting the moment you two met, which is wonderful. Yeah. All right. So Doree, where can the listeners connect with you? Obviously order Thanks for Waiting, all of that lovely stuff.
Yeah. So I have a website. It is Doree-Shafrir.com. I don't want to talk about why I don't own DoreeShafrir.com anymore. Very dramatic. I am on Twitter at Doree. I'm on Instagram at Doree. I do have a public Facebook page at Doree Shafrir Writer. And you can buy my book wherever books are sold.
Preferably your local bookshop, folks.
Yes.
And bookshop.org is also a great resource. And Forever 35, subscribe to that podcast.
Yeah, please subscribe.
Yeah. Well, Doree, thank you for being a part of You, Me, Empathy.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Oh, you're welcome. And to you listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring, pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You, Me, Empathy.